Here comes Sims. Pedaling into the paint, leaning and hitting a 10-0 run to start this game for Indiana. And Minnesota wants a timeout. Caitlin Clark knows it.
You're watching a 10-0 run to start a game, and you see a frantic timeout. You think you're watching a hot start, but I've been in those huddles. I've been in those locker rooms. You're not watching a hot start. You're watching a statement. You're watching the opening shots of a war that was declared months ago. This is what it looks like when a game stops being about basketball and starts being about payback. The story the Indiana Fever and Minnesota Lynx played out on that court wasn't in the official program. It wasn't about seeding. It wasn't about stats. It was about revenge. The Indiana Fever, a team missing 5 key players, including their generational superstar Caitlin Clark, didn't just beat the top-seeded Minnesota Lynx. They dismantled them. They embarrassed them. And they did it with a cold, calculated fury that can only come from one place: the burning need to defend one of their own. This was a targeted attack, aimed squarely at one person: Lynx coach Cheryl Reeve. Today, we're not talking X's and O's. We're going inside the locker room to reveal how the Fever's unwavering loyalty to their fallen star fueled one of the most brutal acts of basketball revenge I have ever seen. This was personal. To understand the fury you saw on that court, you have to go back to the moment the 2024 Olympic roster was announced. When Caitlin Clark, the single most electrifying player in the sport, the woman who single-handedly brought millions of new fans to the WNBA, was left off the team, and who was one of the key architects of that decision: Team USA's head coach, Cheryl Reeve. The league tried to spin it. Pundits tried to rationalize it. But in the world of pro sports, where respect is everything, it was seen for what it was: a slap in the face, a personal slight. As a player, I can tell you, that kind of disrespect doesn't just get filed away. It gets memorized. It gets discussed in hushed tones on the team bus, in the training room, and in the locker room. A silent vow is made. We will get you back for this, for the Fever. That feeling was amplified 1,000 times over because it was their teammate, their leader, who was wronged. They watched her handle it with class publicly, but they knew the private sting. And then the universe delivered the perfect storm. The Fever are set to play the Lynx in the final game of the regular season. Caitlin Clark is sidelined with a devastating injury, forced to watch from the bench. There is nothing, and I mean nothing, more painful for an athlete than being unable to fight your own battles. And as Clark posted that heartbreaking message to Instagram just hours before the game, a black and white photo with the simple, aching caption, "I miss this so bad," her teammates saw their mission crystallize. If Caitlin couldn't get her revenge on Cheryl Reeve herself, they would do it for her. The opening tip was a formality. The game plan was simple: inflict maximum psychological damage. That 10-0 run wasn't a fluke, it was an ambush. They played with a ferocity that left the Lynx completely stunned. But the most telling moment of all didn't even happen on the court. As the Fever blitzed Minnesota and Reeve was forced into that humiliating early timeout, Caitlin Clark, from the bench, cheekily signaled the timeout for her. Don't mistake that for a playful joke. That was a calculated taunt. It was Caitlin, even while injured, twisting the knife. It was a direct message to the coach who snubbed her. A gesture that screamed, "Even from the sidelines, I still own you. You can keep me off Team USA, but you can't stop my team from humiliating yours." That single act set the tone for the entire night. This was not a game. It was a beatdown with a message attached. Every player on that Fever roster understood the assignment. But as the game wore on, a narrative began to form that added another layer of psychological warfare to their revenge plot. People started talking about how well they were playing without Clark. And then, one of her own teammates gave the mission its voice.
I know a lot of people will talk about Nafisa not playing, but I think they're really good without her. You know, they're just a really great basketball team. So I think it was a big win for us because they set the bar high standard-wise. We know what you know, we know what to expect when it comes to Minnesota Lynx. And so I think going into the playoffs, it was big for us because, you know, being able to know, you know, guarding Courtney Williams, you know, knowing that her thing is a pull-up, you know, knowing that now instead of not knowing that, you know, it's big for us because we give ourselves a chance. And if they are the standard, we get to see where we are.
See, how much pride do you take in the fact that you started in every game now for 2 straight years, and on top of that, you're now the points per game leader in franchise history?
Man, I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm never gonna give up. I'm never gonna. If I'm able, willingly, 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 arms to play the game, because a lot of people can't, I'm gonna play. It may not, you know, fall my way all the time, but you never have to worry about me not being present, especially if I don't have anywhere else to be. So that's just what that is. I'm never gonna not play and compete. You're never not gonna see me sit out if I don't need to. And so it's just about staying. I obviously having rhythm and being who I want to be, but I'm all about basketball when it comes to like just finishing on the scoreboard, and that's what everybody cares about. What's only on the scoreboard. But I think in order for us to be who we need to be for a playoff run, like the rebounding, knowing who we're guarding, like not having like live ball turnovers was kind of like it was pivotal in that third quarter, and so we got gut checked because it could have easily flipped the other way. But I think you see our growth.
I know a lot of people will talk about this and not playing, but I think they did a really good with or without her. You know, just a really great basketball team. Now, on the surface, that sounds like a player expressing confidence in her squad, and it is. But when you're in a revenge game, you have to listen with a different set of ears. I've been in these situations. Every word has a double meaning. This wasn't a shot at Caitlin. It was a carefully aimed missile directed at Cheryl Reeve. The subtext was deafening. They were saying, "You thought you could cripple the future of USA basketball by snubbing our star? You thought you were hurting her, and by extension, us. Look again. We are this dominant, this powerful, even when our best player is in street clothes. We are fueled by the disrespect you showed her. This is our response. And if we can do this to you without her, just imagine what we will do to you when she comes back." It was the ultimate power move, turning Reeve's own decision against her and using it as fuel to burn her championship-caliber team to the ground. Every successful revenge mission needs a general on the floor, someone to channel the collective rage into precise, devastating action. For the Indiana Fever, that general was Kelsey Mitchell. While the world was focused on Clark, Mitchell was quietly having the single greatest scoring season in the history of the franchise, breaking a record held by the legendary Tamika Catchings. She became the first Fever player ever to average over 20 points per game for a season. This wasn't just a player getting hot, this was a star coming into her own, forged in the fires of adversity. Her own coach, Stephanie White, admitted that Mitchell has been through the ringer in this organization. Kelsey knows what it's like to be overlooked, to fight for respect year after year. She took all of that pent-up frustration, for her own career, for her team's struggles, and for the disrespect shown to Caitlin, and she unleashed it on Cheryl Reeve's squad. You could see it in her eyes. Every crossover was sharper, every drive to the basket was more aggressive. She wasn't just scoring, she was punishing them. Her own teammates see a player who is simply on another level. They see an unstoppable force.
Against Kelsey a lot, but now that you're her teammate, what stands out to you about her scoring and the way she goes about working on things like that?
Bucket, instant offense, try your best to keep her in front, trap, that doesn't work, hard heads doesn't work. You know, you just gotta play as hard as you can just to really keep her in front of you. Like, seriously. I mean, a lot of people say, it's a fact, but you ask who's one of the toughest guards, who's one of the hardest guards to guard, she's definitely number one.
I appreciate that.
You asked one of the toughest guards who's on the hardest guards to guard. She's definitely number one. I appreciate, though, hands down. You can't defend a player who is fighting for something more than a win. Kelsey Mitchell's mission that night was to make Cheryl Reeve and the Lynx feel every bit of the disrespect they had shown her teammate. She was the weapon, and loyalty was the ammunition. The weight of that responsibility, of carrying her team and fighting this proxy war for Caitlin, is immense. You can see the emotional toll it takes, the passion that drives her to never, ever back down.
With the MVP, okay? Bow, bow, bow! Hell yeah. You already know what it is. Dubs in the chat, you already know what it is. You already know what it is. Let's go and play off a little some momentum.
I mean, I don't want to sound cliche, but I'm never going to give up. I'm never going, if I'm able willingly, 2 feet, 2 legs, 2 arms, to play the game because a lot of people can't. I'm going to play. You never have to worry about me not being present. That is the voice of a warrior, and her soldiers followed her lead. Odyssey Sims came off the bench and dropped 15 points, a veteran reminding everyone she could still dictate a game. Lexi Hull was a defensive nightmare, embodying the team's relentless energy. And just when the Lynx tried to mount a comeback, Aerial Powers stepped up and hit back-to-back three-pointers that felt less like shots and more like daggers to the heart of their momentum. Caitlin Clark was euphoric on the bench, not just watching her team win, but watching her teammates fight for her honor. By the final buzzer, the scoreboard read 83-72, but that score was irrelevant. The real result was the message that had been delivered, loud and clear. This victory gave the Fever their most wins in franchise history and their first winning record since 2015, but it felt like so much more. It was a culture-defining moment, forged in loyalty and executed with brutal efficiency. When Kelsey Mitchell gathered her team in the locker room afterward, she didn't talk about her record-breaking season or the stats. She said just 4 words that every single person in that room understood on a deeper level. "You've seen our growth." She was right. But the growth she was talking about wasn't just in their skill. They had grown into a team that defends its own, a team that understands that some things are bigger than basketball, a team that could take a grievous insult to their superstar and turn it into the fuel for a cold, calculated act of revenge. They had grown into a team that Cheryl Reeve now knows she has to fear. The message was sent. The payback was delivered. But anyone who knows Cheryl Reeve knows she doesn't forget. She heard every jeer, saw every taunt, and felt the sting of this humiliating loss. This war isn't over. The Fever just fired the first devastating shot in a battle that is sure to escalate. And the biggest question that remains is the one that should terrify the rest of the WNBA. What happens when you add a healthy, motivated, and avenged Caitlin Clark back to this battle-hardened, revenge-fueled roster? This was never just about one game. It was about sending a message, and that message will echo all the way through the playoffs.